Across suburban America, the same weekend ritual unfolds with remarkable consistency. A homeowner stands in the driveway surveying the lawn. Green grass stretches toward the property line, interrupted by small clusters of broad-leafed plants pushing up through the turf. Dandelions along the fence, low-growing mats with tiny white flowers near the walkway. A patch of thick-stemmed succulents spreading across the garden bed. The response is immediate and automatic. Herbicide from the garage, mixed according to the label. Applied with methodical precision to every plant that does not belong. Within days, the intruders wilt and disappear. The lawn returns to uniformity. But something unusual happens in that moment between identification and elimination. What gets destroyed is not what most people think they are removing. The broad-leafed plants along the fence contain more calcium, iron, and vitamin A than the kale sold at the grocery store. The low-growing mat near the walkway has been used as a wound-healing remedy for over 2,000 years. The thick-stemmed succulent spreading across the garden bed contains the highest concentration of omega-3 fatty acids of any land-based plant on Earth. Not weeds in the biological sense, but food, medicine, and survival crops that once supported human communities across continents and centuries. They grow without planting, without irrigation, without fertilizer, and without permission. They appear in spring, persist through summer, and return each year with a resilience that cultivated crops rarely match. And in most American yards, they are treated as problems to be solved rather than resources to be recognized. This is a story about 10 specific plants, currently growing in millions of yards across North America, that contain nutritional and medicinal properties verified by scientific research and supported by centuries of human use. Some are sold in grocery stores under different names. Others are processed into supplements and sold in pharmacies for prices that would seem absurd if people realized the same plant was growing free in their backyard. All of them share one thing in common. They have been reclassified in the modern landscape not because they lack value, but because they do not fit the systems built around uniformity, predictability, and control. Before pulling another weed, it may be worth knowing what is actually being removed. The first plant most people recognize immediately, though few consider it anything other than a nuisance. Dandelion appears in lawns every spring with aggressive consistency, producing bright yellow flowers that turn to white seed heads within days. For most of the 20th century, dandelion has been treated as the primary enemy of lawn perfection. But this was not always the case. During the 18th and early 19th centuries, dandelion held a very different position in agricultural economies. When forests were cleared across Europe and North America, the ash left behind was collected, processed, and sold as potash, one of the earliest mineral fertilizers. Dandelion grew in the same disturbed soils and was recognized early as a plant with unusual nutritional density. Every part of the dandelion is edible. The leaves can be eaten raw in salads or cooked like any bitter green. The roots can be dried, roasted, and ground into a coffee substitute. The flowers can be made into wine or fried as fritters. Nutritionally, dandelion ranks among the most concentrated sources of vitamins and minerals available in any leafy green. The leaves contain high levels of vitamins A, C, E, and K, along with iron, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. According to the Cleveland Clinic, dandelion greens are among the most nutrient-dense greens that can be eaten, surpassing even kale and spinach in several categories. What makes this particularly striking is that dandelion greens are now sold commercially in grocery stores across the United States. People pay several dollars per bunch for a plant that is currently growing free in their yard, often within a few feet of where they park their car. The second plant is even more common than dandelion, though it rarely attracts the same level of attention. Plantain grows low to the ground in a flat rosette pattern, with broad oval leaves marked by distinctive parallel veins. It appears in compacted soil, along sidewalks, in the cracks of driveways, and throughout lawns where foot traffic has compressed the earth. Native Americans called plantain white man's foot because it seemed to appear everywhere European settlers traveled. Indigenous communities recognized it quickly as a useful medicinal plant, and it became integrated into traditional healing practices across North America. Plantain has been used as a wound-healing remedy for centuries in nearly every part of the world where it grows. The leaves contain polysaccharides, flavonoids, and compounds that have been studied for their anti-inflammatory and tissue repair properties. The practical application is simple. A fresh plantain leaf, crushed or chewed to release its juices, can be applied directly to insect bites, stings, minor cuts, or skin irritations. The leaf acts as a natural poultice, drawing out inflammation and providing a cooling effect. The relief is often noticeable within minutes. The young leaves are also edible, steamed or sautéed like spinach. What makes plantain particularly valuable is its resilience. The plant grows in conditions that would kill most cultivated vegetables. It requires no water beyond rainfall, no fertilizer, and no maintenance. It tolerates compacted soil, foot traffic, and neglect. And yet it is pulled, sprayed, and eliminated as a weed, not because it lacks function, but because it does not conform to the visual expectations of a managed landscape. The third plant is smaller and easier to overlook, but it offers something that few other plants can provide at the same time of year. Chickweed appears in early spring, often in February or March, long before most garden plants have begun to grow. It spreads in a low, soft mat across shaded or moist areas, producing tiny white flowers with 5 deeply split petals that resemble stars. Chickweed has been used as food and medicine for centuries. The leaves and stems are rich in vitamins A, C, and several B vitamins, along with minerals including calcium, magnesium, iron, and zinc. The young leaves and stems can be eaten raw in salads or cooked briefly like spinach. The flavor is mild and slightly grassy. What makes chickweed particularly useful is its timing. It emerges at a moment when almost nothing else in the garden is ready to harvest. In late winter and early spring, when the ground is still cold and most perennial crops have not yet broken dormancy, chickweed is already growing, already green, and already edible. For gardeners and foragers, chickweed represents a bridge between seasons. It does not replace summer vegetables or fall harvests, but it fills a gap that few other plants occupy naturally. And like dandelion and plantain, it is typically removed as soon as it appears, treated as a competitor for space rather than a resource growing exactly when it is needed most. The fourth plant is one of the few on this list that people hesitate to remove, not because they recognize its value, but because it is undeniably beautiful. Wild violet appears in early spring with small purple, white, or blue flowers that emerge from dense clusters of heart-shaped leaves. Most people recognize violets as ornamental wildflowers, but few realize that both the flowers and leaves are completely edible. Violets have been used in European herbal medicine for centuries, particularly for respiratory conditions. The leaves and flowers contain mucilage, a substance that coats and soothes irritated tissues in the throat and airways. Nutritionally, violets provide significant amounts of vitamins A and C, along with calcium and magnesium. What makes violets particularly interesting is their current use in high-end restaurants. Chefs in urban dining establishments pay specialty foragers to supply fresh violet flowers as edible garnishes. During the Victorian era, France alone reportedly harvested 6 tons of violet flowers annually for use in perfumes and confections. The plant was not considered a weed, but a valuable crop with established markets. That status shifted as residential landscaping standards changed, and the aesthetic ideal of a uniform grass lawn became dominant. The fifth plant surprises almost everyone who tastes it for the first time. Wood sorrel grows in lawns and gardens throughout North America. It is often mistaken for clover because of its 3-lobed leaves, but the leaves are heart-shaped rather than rounded. Wood sorrel is easy to overlook, but it is nearly impossible to forget once tasted. The leaves have a bright, tangy, lemony flavor caused by the presence of oxalic acid, the same compound found in spinach and rhubarb. The taste is sharp and refreshing, almost like biting into a slice of lemon. Historically, wood sorrel was recognized as a remedy for scurvy, the vitamin C deficiency that plagued sailors and populations with limited access to fresh produce. Because wood sorrel contains oxalic acid, it should be consumed in moderation, the same caution that applies to spinach and chard. What makes wood sorrel particularly notable is its current status in the culinary world. Fine dining restaurants in cities like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles Purchase wood sorrel from specialty foragers who supply chefs with wild ingredients. The same plant grows as a common weed in gardens and lawns across the country, often pulled and discarded without a second thought. The sixth plant may be the most nutritionally significant on this entire list. Lamb's quarters grows tall and fast, often reaching 4 to 5 feet in height by midsummer. The leaves are diamond-shaped with irregular teeth along the edges, and the young growth is covered with a fine whitish powder. Lamb's quarters is a close relative of quinoa, both belonging to the genus Chenopodium. The seeds were used as a grain crop by indigenous communities in North America for thousands of years before corn became the dominant staple. Nutritional comparisons reveal that lamb's quarters contains approximately twice the calcium of spinach, significantly more vitamin C, and higher levels of vitamin A. The leaves provide more protein and iron than raw cabbage and rival or exceed spinach in nearly every measurable category. Lamb's quarters lost its status as a cultivated crop in Europe after spinach was introduced in the 16th century. In North America, the plant continued to grow wild, but its role as a food crop faded as European agricultural practices displaced indigenous systems. The result is that one of the most nutritious plants capable of growing in temperate climates is now treated as a weed, pulled from gardens to make room for crops that often contain fewer vitamins and minerals per serving. The seventh plant is the only one on this list that most people actively fear. Stinging nettle grows in dense patches along roadsides and forest edges. The plant is covered in fine, hollow hairs that inject formic acid and histamine into the skin upon contact, producing a burning sensation that can last for hours. But the sting disappears completely when the plant is cooked. Blanching nettle leaves in boiling water for 30 seconds neutralizes the stinging hairs and renders the plant entirely safe to handle and eat. What remains is one of the most nutritionally dense cooked greens available. Nettle contains high levels of vitamins A, C, K, and several B vitamins, along with significant amounts of iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and silica. Historical records indicate that ancient Egyptians used nettle preparations to treat arthritis and lower back pain. Modern research has focused on nettle's potential as a natural antihistamine for seasonal allergy symptoms. In much of Europe, nettle tea is not an obscure herbal product, but a common beverage sold in grocery stores and consumed regularly by millions of people. In the United States, nettle is far less recognized, and the plant is more often treated as a hazard than a resource. The eighth plant is particularly relevant for women, though its benefits extend to anyone concerned with bone health. Red clover grows in lawns and fields throughout North America, producing distinctive pink or purple pom-pom-shaped flower heads. The plant contains compounds called isoflavones, which are phytoestrogens with a chemical structure similar to human estrogen. More compelling evidence exists for red clover's effects on bone health. A double-blind study published in 2015 found that women who consumed red clover extract daily over a 12-week period experienced improvements in bone mineral density at the lumbar spine. Another study reported that red clover supplementation reduced bone loss from the spine by 45% compared to placebo over 1 year. Red clover supplements are sold in pharmacies for $15 to $30 per bottle. The same plant grows freely in lawns and fields where it is often mowed down or treated as a weed. Women who are pregnant, breastfeeding, or have a history of hormone-sensitive conditions should consult a healthcare provider before using red clover regularly. The ninth plant is impossible to miss once it reaches maturity. Mullein grows as a tall, striking plant that can reach 6 to 8 feet in height. The first year produces a low rosette of large, velvety leaves. In the second year, a thick central stalk emerges, topped with a dense spike of small yellow flowers. Mullein has been used for respiratory conditions for more than 2,000 years. The ancient Greek physician Dioscorides recommended mullein for lung diseases. In Appalachian folk medicine, mullein leaves were brewed into syrups and teas to treat coughs and bronchitis. The plant contains mucilage, which coats and soothes inflamed tissues in the throat and airways, and saponins, which help thin mucus and make it easier to expel from the lungs. Modern herbal medicine continues to use mullein for respiratory support. The dried leaves are sold in health food stores as teas, tinctures, and capsules. Mullein grows wild in fields and roadsides throughout the United States, yet it is rarely recognized as a useful plant. The 10th plant is the one that deserves the most attention, both for its nutritional content and for the scale of the opportunity that is being ignored. Purslane grows as a low, spreading succulent with thick reddish stems and small, rounded green leaves. According to global agricultural surveys, purslane is the most widely reported weed species on Earth. It grows on every continent except Antarctica. This perspective ignores what may be the most important nutritional fact about any plant on this list. Purslane contains the highest concentration of omega-3 fatty acids of any land-based plant that has been measured to date. Research published in 1992 by Dr. Artemis Simopoulos found that purslane contained 5 to 7 times more alpha-linolenic acid than spinach. Omega-3 fatty acids are widely recognized as essential nutrients that support cardiovascular health, reduce inflammation, and play critical roles in brain function. Most people associate omega-3s with fish oil supplements or fatty fish like salmon, yet purslane, a plant that grows as a weed in gardens and driveways, contains more omega-3s per gram than most other plant sources. Purslane also contains 6 times more vitamin E than spinach and 7 times more beta-carotene than carrots. The World Health Organization has listed purslane as one of the most important medicinal plants in the world. In Mexico, it is known as verdolaga and is used in traditional dishes. In France, purslane is sold in produce markets. In China, it is called the vegetable for long life. In the United States, purslane is sprayed with herbicides, pulled from gardens, and treated as a nuisance. The pattern that emerges across these 10 plants is not accidental. Each of these plants grows without human intervention, requires no inputs, and provides food or medicine that has been recognized and used by human communities for centuries or millennia. Each of them has been reclassified as a weed, not because they lack value, but because they do not fit the systems that prioritize uniformity, predictability, and control. The lawn care industry depends economically on the idea that a yard should contain only grass and intentionally planted ornamentals. The food system operates on similar principles. Crops that are difficult to mechanize or perishable in ways that complicate long-distance transport are often abandoned, regardless of their nutritional content. These systems are not conspiracies. They are the result of economic incentives, logistical constraints, and cultural preferences that have developed over decades. But the consequences are real. Knowledge that was once common has become obscure. Plants that were once valued have been forgotten. Nature continues to offer these plants every year, quietly and persistently in lawns, gardens, sidewalks, and vacant lots. They do not require planting, watering, fertilizing, or permission. They simply grow, waiting to be recognized. Before pulling the next weed, it may be worth taking a moment to identify what is actually there. A photograph, a field guide, or a careful comparison to reliable sources can reveal whether what looks like a problem is actually an opportunity. The land is still generous, the knowledge is still accessible, and the plants are still growing, exactly where they have always been.